Alright, it's been a while. Time for a new video. Just get into position here. The heck is that? Lisa, what's going on?
Security breach. We have an intruder.
Cancelled! 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 Who the hell are you? My name is Richard Stevenson, and I'm the Quality Control Enforcer from the Department of Informational Corrections and Knowledge. The Department of Informational Corrections and Knowledge. Hey, that spells out dick. Shut up! Your show is not living up to the standards of quality we expect of internet content creators. I'm here to cancel you. You can't cancel anything. This is my show. And besides, a lot of people like it. What they think is irrelevant. We tell them what they're supposed to like. Well, they still like it. That's gotta mean something. No! It's not perfect, so it doesn't count! You really think that's fair, just taking away things people like? It's not about what the people want! It's about how much money we get from them! This show is not generating the projected Lisa, can you please eject this asshole?
So Initiating transport beam.
What? You can't do this to me! I'll have your show cancelled yet! You haven't seen the last of me! I'll be back! Jeez, how cliched can you get? Oh, by the way, where'd you send him?
I sent him to the moon.
The moon? But there's no oxygen on the moon!
Yes, I know.
Good work. Well then, shall we continue? Well, I hope you're happy. I'm finally doing a list video.
According to my records, you did a list video a long time ago.
We don't talk about that one. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of Marvel. I loved the comics and I loved the cartoons. But over the years, I've come to love DC just as much. And while Marvel is still dominant when it comes to live-action movies, DC's got 'em beat when it comes to TV shows and their ever-growing library of great animated movies. Though Marvel has had some good ones too, they don't even come close to DC. Seriously, look how many there are! I can't review all these, it would take forever. So I'm gonna take the easy way out. I'm just gonna talk about my top 10 favorites. Just to clarify, I'm only talking about the direct-to-DVD standalone movies, not any of the ones connected to a TV show. Sorry, Mask of the Phantasm, you're not on the list. Though you'd probably be number 1 anyway. I should also mention that I will only be judging these on how well they work as films. I haven't read any comic books in years, so I'll probably be missing a couple of references, and I won't be comparing these to their source material. I'll leave that to the inevitable angry comments I'll get. Finally, keep in mind there's going to be some repetitiveness to this list. This is DC we're talking about here. Check this out. Superman, Batman, Superman, Batman, and the rest. I really wish DC would give us more variety, but I'll get into that later. So let's get into it. Here are my 10 favorite, not necessarily best, favorite DC animated movies. Number 10, Jala Adventures Trapped in Time. Odds are you haven't heard of this one, mostly because it was a limited time Target exclusive, but I decided to give it the number 10 spot to help give it a little more exposure. It starts out pretty standard for DC. The Justice League and the Legion of Doom are going at it, but during the battle they lose track of Lex Luthor and presume him dead. It turns out he got frozen and is freed far into the future. He finds an hourglass inhabited by a being called Time Trapper and heads back to his time to wreak havoc. From here, the movie mainly focuses on 2 young heroes from the future that I've actually never heard of. Dawnstar, who from the cover I honestly thought was going to be some version of Hawkgirl, and Karate Kid. Like I said, I haven't read a comic book in years, and I'll admit that I'm not too familiar with some of the, let's say, less mainstream heroes. But is there seriously a character named Karate Kid? Was he trained by a handyman? Is he at war with the Cobra Kai? Does he know the unblockable crane kick? And I'm sure no one's made that comparison before. Anyway, I do feel like this movie was made with a younger audience in mind, as the plot is driven by stupid decisions, 1 in a million coincidences, and some overall silliness. Also, it has the whiniest Robin I've seen in a while. Thankfully, we don't see him too often because he seriously gives Chris O'Donnell a run for his money.
Stay in the Batwing. Stay safe. Stay out of trouble. So not fair.
Please refrain from kicking the autopilot controls and have a nice flight.
I'll have whatever kind of flight I want.
But there is a lot to like about it. I like seeing heroes most people might not be familiar with take the spotlight. The climax was awesome. It had some neat references and even a few funny moments.
Well, since I'm here, I might as well get some roast pig. Ooh, or some fish tacos. Better not tell Aquaman.
And it had some great voice acting. Most notable were Grey Delisle Griffin as Wonder Woman.
I have battled harpies with talons as hard as Hydra fangs. Your little scratches are almost soothing.
Diedrich Bader reprising his role as Batman from Batman Brave and the Bold.
I'm putting the Batwing on autopilot. It should keep Toyman busy while I help Cyborg.
And Dante Bosco as Karate Kid.
But I've studied every martial art ever invented. I'm ready to go.
But do you know how to firebend? It's also pretty short, so if you can find it, I'd say it's worth your time.
Well, you're always welcome here. You two are fine young superheroes. You should be proud.
Number 9, Wonder Woman. With the announcement of the Superman and Batman movie and a possible Justice League movie in the future, there's been a lot of outcry about Wonder Woman not having her own movie. But what people seem to forget is that we've already had a great Wonder Woman movie. And it puts to rest any stupid reason executives say we can't have a live-action movie. One thing I keep hearing is Wonder Woman doesn't have any good villains. While she does have some silly villains that probably won't translate well to live action, just like every other hero does, the main villain for this movie is Ares, the god of war. That's as awesome of a bad guy as you can get. Heck, you could just pick any bad guy from all of Greek mythology and you've got a good villain for your movie. There you go! Myth busted! Anyway, as for this movie, it's awesome. It's about the Amazons' first contact with modern man. Meanwhile, Ares is looking to take over and it's up to Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor to stop him while trying to put aside their differences. Which is one issue I have with this movie. There's a strong theme about the two sexes trying to get along, which is fine, but the stereotypes are so extreme it gets a little painful to watch. All the men are sexist pigs and the Amazons are cold-hearted man-haters. Guess I can't blame them. The scene where Steve tries to get Wonder Woman drunk still makes me uncomfortable.
You tried to get me drunk. As if you could outdrink an Amazon, you pathetic lightweight.
But by the end, they do learn to compromise so they can work together. And besides, everything else in this movie is great. So we might not ever get a good live-action movie, but I'll stick to this when I want to see Wonder Woman do what she does best. Number 8, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. Parallel universes can make for great stories, especially for superheroes. In this alternate timeline, the Justice League is known as the Crime Syndicate and are pretty much holding the world hostage. But Lex Luthor escapes their dimension to seek help from the Justice League. One interesting thing about this movie is it was originally intended to bridge the gap between Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, but it was later reworked into a standalone movie. Though as a fan of the show, I do wonder what the original would have been like. Just think, there's a parallel universe out there where this was made as originally intended. If that's not meta, I don't know what is. I love the bad universe. It's got evil Superman, or rather Ultraman, really Ultraman, talking like a crime boss.
We spent $37 billion on government bribes last year. No more of that. We'll be the government.
Slade Wilson is president, there's a neat bit about how Wonder Woman got her invisible jet, and a climax that'll make you realize not everything is so black and white. But by far the best part of this movie was Owlman, the parallel universe Batman, voiced by James Woods. He is terrifying.
Every decision we make
is meaningless. Because somewhere, on a parallel Earth, we have already made the opposite choice. We're nothing. Less than nothing.
His deadpan delivery makes him sound so detached you wonder if he had any humanity to begin with. And his ultimate plan doesn't help either.
Every Earth is a variation of this one, the original. And once I destroy it, all reality will follow.
I take it back. You're much crazier than I am.
Don't get in my way.
Ooh. Anyone else feel a chill? Truly a performance that will haunt your nightmares.
If we're really alike, you know this is wrong. You must have been a good man once.
No, not good. Never good. After all, I'm only human.
Number 7, Justice League Doom. As most people know, Batman has no real superpowers, and yet he sits next to superhumans. It's because he's super intelligent, quick thinking, and always has a contingency plan. But what happens if his contingency plans fall into the wrong hands? In this one, Vandal Savage and a bunch of other villains systematically take out the Justice League one by one using plans Batman secretly came up with in case they need to be brought down. Each method not only attacks them physically, but mentally as well, further proving you don't mess with Batman. However, the rest of the League feels his plans are a breach of their trust, and while I do agree with them, at the same time, he's not really in the wrong.
The members of the Justice League are among the most powerful and potentially dangerous people on the planet.
You think one of us would go over to the other side?
Or succumb to mind control? Yes, it's possible. That's why I developed plans for containing any or all members of the JLA, should the need ever arise.
I gotta side with Batman here. This is the DC universe, you gotta be ready in case Superman loses his shit, or some evil version of a hero winds up in their world, like we've established in the last movie. It's not pleasant, but you do have to be ready for anything. But regardless of how you feel about that, the rest of the movie is great. You get to see Cyborg have a few moments in the spotlight, a lot of the voice actors from the Justice League TV show reprise their roles, and there's Vandal Savage's ultimate plan, which is insane, but I won't spoil it. Ultimately, the theme of this movie is trust. Trust in your team, and your team's trust in you. And trust me when I say, it's awesome.
None of us would ever do that to you.
Then you're damn fools.
Number 6, Green Lantern First Flight. Like I said before, DC doesn't always give us a lot of variety in their movies. And with so many characters in the DC universe to work off, that's really disappointing. Granted, every time they've tried, the results leave something to be desired, at best. But every once in a while, they get it right. Of course, this is the story of Hal Jordan getting the ring, adjusting to his new surroundings and responsibilities, and being mentored by Sinestro. I love how they have a good cop, bad cop thing going on for a while. Speaking of which, I love Victor Garber as Sinestro. He's almost as scary as Owlman, which brings me to the one issue I have with this, but it's kind of the inherent problem with Green Lantern. Nobody knew Sinestro was a bad guy. Nobody could figure out that this creepy purple guy with that mustache named Sinestro was evil. He interrogates people in ways that would make Jack Bauer cringe. Do one of these rings represent intelligence? Because clearly the green one doesn't. All I've got left to say is this was so satisfying that I wanted more. And there is another movie, so as an honorable mention, you should also check out Emerald Knights as well. It's an anthology featuring many of the other Green Lanterns. It has little to do with First Flight, but if you need to satisfy that Green Lantern itch, check them both out. They're better Green Lantern movies than the Green Lantern movie.
In brightest day,
in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
Number 5, Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. Even though it has Justice League in the title, this is Flash's story, and probably the closest we'll ever get to a Flash movie. Barry Allen wakes up to discover he's in an unfamiliar world. He no longer has his super speed, and his mother is still alive. On top of it all, the world is in total chaos. Aquaman and Wonder Woman had an affair that triggered a war, Cyborg works for the government, Superman never became Superman, and Captain Atom is used as a bomb that can destroy everyone. And somehow Flash caused all this. I must warn you, do not go into this movie expecting to laugh or hear any clever quips. This movie is by far the darkest of all the DC movies, and is unpleasant to the point where you might feel ill. Batman also plays a big role in this, but I won't spoil anything. Let's just say, even with all the nastiness, the ending is still worth it, and it might tug your heartstrings a bit. I'm not saying any more. This is the last movie before the DC reboot happened, and what a hell of a title to go out on.
What did you do to the world? Oh, Barry, that's the beauty of all this. I didn't do any of it. You did.
Number 4, Superman vs. the Elite. Spoilers, but I feel bad this is the only Superman movie on my list. I love Superman, and for the most part I've liked all the movies, save for maybe one, but by far this one stands out the best. Before I go any further, let me get one thing I don't like about this movie out of the way. I don't like the character design. Something about it looks off. Maybe I'm used to a more consistent look in these movies, but it just doesn't feel right to me. Anyway, Superman runs into the Elite, a group of would-be heroes that play by their own rules, which includes killing off bad guys. As most people know, Superman doesn't kill, despite what some people would have you think, but I'm not going to get into that debate because it's a can of worms I refuse to open. But I will say that this movie makes a good case in favor of Superman's ideals. The Elite are revealed to be a bunch of thugs that push Superman to his mental limit, until he breaks.
I made the mistake of treating you people like people, but now I understand better. The world needs people in charge who are willing to put the animals down.
Is that Superman?
Not anymore.
The inevitable scene where they fight is like a message to everyone that has ever criticized Superman for never killing anyone. As if to say, is this it? Is this what you wanted? You're tired of the Boy Scout Superman, aren't you? You want a Superman that kills bad guys, don't you? Well, here you go, in all of its horrifying glory. I hope it was worth it. I won't spoil anything else, but let's just say it all works out, and this is easily the best Superman movie to come out in years.
This isn't you! You don't do this!
I do now.
Number 3, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. Based on one of the few works of Frank Miller that doesn't seem to infuriate people, this was a movie that came out in 2 parts and later repackaged into 1 DVD. Thanks for that, Warner Brothers. This takes place during Batman's later years when he starts to slow down, and as a result, crime in Gotham rises. Gangs rule the streets, and villains that were thought to be reformed revert back to their old selves. It's gritty, dark, and everything you could want from a Batman story. Part 1 is about Batman coming back to clean up the streets, even if it means crossing a few lines. Part 2 sees the return of the Joker in their most intense confrontation yet, and the new commissioner trying to take in Batman. Yeah, good luck with that. And it ends with Superman sent in to try and stop him because the president thinks he's making the government look bad. I love the wraparound segments on the news, especially when they're debating whether or not Batman is doing good. All the fight scenes are great, and I really liked Carrie Kelly as the new Robin. And this was by far one of the most fucked up versions of the Joker ever depicted.
It's finally here, isn't it? The moment we both dreamed about. Oh, don't tell me you're gonna fall asleep before we finish. You have gotten old. haven't you?
But as great as this is, I do have two complaints. Batman is voiced by Peter Weller, and while he does okay, there were a few moments where I just wasn't feeling it from him.
Tonight, I am going to maintain order in Gotham City. You are going to help me. But not with these. These are loud and clumsy. These are the weapons of cowards.
The other thing is a problem I hear most people have with the original comic. It doesn't portray Superman very well. He's basically become a lackey for the government, and that just feels wrong. They don't make him into a villain or anything, he just comes off as someone trying to do his job, but fans of Superman are gonna feel alienated. But the story as a whole is great. It treats Gotham City as if it was a character in trouble and needs a hero to save it. As an honorable mention, you should check out Year One, another Frank Miller story that's kind of a prequel to this. It's about Batman's first year fighting crime, but it mostly focuses on Gordon getting his start with the Gotham Police. Not your typical Batman story, but it's worth a watch. They say Dark Knight Returns is the best Batman story ever told. I'd feel more comfortable putting it higher if Part 2 was a little better, but as far as I'm concerned, there's one that's better.
Tonight, we are the law. Tonight, I am the law.
Number 2, Batman Under the Red Hood. Bet you saw this coming. The movie that's been called so good it rivals the live-action Batman movies, and has even maintained a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. A new criminal shows up in Gotham called the Red Hood, which was the former persona of the Joker, and it's up to Batman to stop him and find out who he really is. This movie is brutal and not for the squeamish. Nothing is held back, and I think that's what I like most about it. It pushes the envelope and makes no apologies. The one complaint I've heard about this movie was people didn't like John DiMaggio as the Joker. Now, don't get me wrong, he's no Mark Hamill, but I thought he did a good job. He was at least creepy enough, and he was kind of funny in a sick, twisted way.
I'm going to need something to wear in a very big truck.
Sure. Anything else?
I'll need some guys. Not these guys, because, well, they're kind of dead.
Though personally, I thought Black Mask was better. I've never seen him before I saw this movie, but I love this guy.
You wanna tell me why this guy ain't dead?
We're trying. We sent the fearsome Hand of Four.
4? Guess they're gonna need a new name. Why hasn't Batman wiped this little smear off the face of the planet?
Maybe he doesn't want to. Perhaps he's letting you and the Red Hood war it out. He could be waiting
to take on the winner? What do you think this is? A tennis tournament?
I'm just saying.
You're an idiot!
Also, this movie has some of the best fight animations and choreography I've seen so far. I really wish I could talk more about this one, but then I'd be getting into major spoilers. If you haven't done so already, check it out, and find out for yourself what's under the Red Hood.
Hard to forget that night, huh? In a way, Batman, this was the site of your first great failure. Maybe your greatest, but certainly not your last, right?
So that wasn't number 1? Uh-oh. I sense controversy. My number 1 favorite DC animated movie, Justice League: The New Frontier. In the wake of the Korean War and on the cusp of the space age, tension starts to rise between the heroes, the military, and the US government. But when something sinister begins to reveal itself, they need to put aside their differences and stop it for the sake of humanity. The evil force is called the Center. It starts out very Lovecraftian with cults and even takes over people's minds. but then it turns out to be a living UFO that shoots dinosaurs with insides that look like an acid trip. I'll be honest, I still have no idea what the hell this thing is supposed to be, but it's awesome. All of the heroes are there, but it mostly focuses on the origin stories of Martian Manhunter and Hal Jordan. Again, making this a better Green Lantern movie than the Green Lantern movie. On top of that, it has a great voice cast. Kyle MacLachlan as Superman, David Boreanaz as Hal Jordan, Neil Patrick Harris as the Flash, Keith David as the voice of the Center, and the greatest casting choice of any superhero ever, Lucy Lawless as Wonder Woman.
All of you, fight on! To the last breath, fight on!
The one complaint I actually have is a lot of the heroes depicted on the cover are not seen during the finale, but that's a minor nitpick. I've heard a lot of people call this movie incoherent, but it didn't feel that way to me. I think it has a good flowing narrative, it doesn't feel rushed, the characters are only on screen when they need to be, and it has great build up to an epic final conflict. It also does a good job playing off the paranoia that was prominent during the nuclear age. So what to me makes this better than Under the Red Hood? Well, for one thing, if you haven't noticed, half of my list is comprised of movies that feature the Justice League. I think I've always preferred the superhero team dynamic over individual stories. Also, while Under the Red Hood is a great story, it's personal and pretty contained. New Frontier is a global conflict, meaning much more is at stake and requires far more effort to conquer, and conflicting sides have to learn to work together for a common cause. This movie actually reminds me a lot of the finale of Justice League Unlimited, which I consider to be one of the best finales to a TV show ever. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the best DC animated movie so far. It's epic, action-packed, it has everything I love about superheroes, and I dare say, it's inspiring.
All of you, remember, today there are no Democrats, no Republicans, no hawks, no doves. Just the naked simplicity of an absolute. Mankind's survival. Good luck to us all.
So that's my list, but before I go, here are some quick thoughts on all the other movies that have come out so far. Superman Doomsday. Relive the disappointment that was the death of Superman. Batman Gotham Knight. Batman meets the Animatrix. I thought it was alright. Superman Batman Public Enemies. You get to see the greatest bromance in all of comic book history. Superman Batman Apocalypse. It's a better Supergirl movie than the Supergirl movie. Also, Ed Asner voices Granny Goodness. That's hilarious. Superman Unbound. Lois Lane gives the finger to Brainiac. Worth it. DC Showcase. A bunch of shorts that involve various heroes. I thought they were pretty solid. All-Star Superman. It sucked. Justice League War. It was okay. And the most recent movie release as of this video, Son of Batman. Good story, but the animation and voice acting felt subpar.
We have been breached! They're already inside! Take the boy!
And there you have it. If any of those sounded interesting, be sure to check them out. And make sure you check out this one. There's something else back there.